Welcome everybody to the Uber Show. With me today is Fernando Barrios from Mexico. Welcome, Fernando. How you doing?
Thank you for bringing me here. I'm doing well. I'm wrapping up on my senior year and my projects, so I'm really excited for whatever is coming in the future. And yeah, a little overwhelmed, but very excited.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that. I'm actually curious about some of the things because I think you're a really interesting personality.
Thank you.
And that's why you are here to talk to us at the Uber Show and share your story with the rest of the world or to those who will be tuned. So make sure to watch through and hear what Fernando has to say. So, how are you feeling about graduating from college? You know.
I don't know. It's a kind of like a new thing in my life having closure because for so long and since I was a kid I've been moving around even in Mexico within
Mm.
Mexico, so I never had like an entire period of time in which I spent years with the same people and then finish. I always, I was moving from schools and I will finish, high school or middle school somewhere, but didn't go through the full experience. So now I guess these 4 years have been passing really fast, but at the same time, it has been a lot since I came during COVID. So I watch all the transition from being back home taking online classes to come here and being locked in my room, in my dorm, and through all of this, and now, normal life, I guess. So it's nice to have that closure, that specific moment in which I say, okay, now I'm finishing this period of my life and starting a new one, wherever that is.
Yeah, that's really interesting because a college is formative in the sense that you make lifelong friends. Some of my best friends are still people that I went to college with. So it's kind of a shame that you got robbed off the first year because of the pandemic. But also, an interesting thing is that you were able to go through that and still finish. So, related to that, I just wanted to know what advice will you offer to incoming college students, or graduating seniors, or any other young people that are going through this journey of life at this stage?
Well, I'm just 22 years old, so I don't call myself wise, but something that I've learned is that you are the owner of your experience. And there's so many things that are out of your hands, things that you cannot control about yourself, about the places that you might move into. But, and I'm not trying to say that everything is on the attitude, but certainly your attitude of towards your context really shapes your experience. I don't know, it has shaped mine, and even though I came to Idaho, very little place and not very cosmopolitan as I'm more used to, I found my space, I found my people, I found the circles in which I was comfortable with, and I'm very proud of what I've achieved. If it's something that was going wrong at the college or the community, I will step into it and try to fix it. Unlike other people that might, just complain about it.
Yeah, I think so. I enjoyed having you in some of the classes, and I think your voice was pretty present in some of the conversations we had. So yeah, it was a pleasure. Now, tell us about your upbringing, and where and how did you grow up. I mean, you hinted a little bit on that, but we just want to have an exhaustive, to the extent that you're comfortable sharing, understanding of your background.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from Mexico. Both of my parents are from Mexico. I'm from a little town in the middle of nowhere, but I love my region. It's called Tempoal,
Mm,
which means the place of fish and frog.
mm.
It's located in the state of Veracruz, in the north, actually, of the state of Veracruz, which is kind of in the middle of Mexico. Um, my town belongs to this cultural region called La Huasteca. It's highly indigenous populated, so I have that heritage. That culture is part of my daily life
Mm.
in some extent, and yeah, I mean, it was kind of like a weird family in which I grew up with. Because my mom is in this little town in the middle of nowhere. She's an academic. She has a PhD. She has a like all this cultural background and formation on education that definitely made me feel different as I was growing up with my peers, with my other families. So I'm very embedded even today with my culture and my people, my family as well. but at the same time, I always been somehow foreigner. So my mom always tried me to, into the extent that she could, to show it the world, kind of like with all the limitations that we had. We couldn't travel abroad, we couldn't see many things, we didn't have things like theater or cinema or many things. With YouTube, sources like that, she tried to bring music to me, she tried to be art, bring art to me, which really started this curious mindset that I still have, and always have the hunger of traveling and getting to know new people, new cultures, new religions, most expressions and art.
Oh,
Uh,
that's really interesting that even in this semi-isolated space in central Mexico, your mom brought curiosity of the world. So you already globalized, even though you are not really experiencing these places in three dimensions, but you are experiencing them through books and reading. So reading was part of your family culture.
yes, I'm not such a good reader, but definitely my mom did a great job, kind of like pushing me through it, and um, again, I guess art was the main source of curiosity that I had. And something that really marked my life, and now I think about it recently, is that she has friends in many parts of the world,
Mm.
um, because of conferences that she did, or oh, like people that were in her life during college or masters or whatever, and she will ask them to write letters of their traveling. From Italy, from she has friends in Cuba, some Cuban revolutionary heroes. Like, hey, when I was a kid, I was 4 years old. I didn't know what was going on, but definitely, I still have those postcards that I save with a lot of love and appreciation from these people, but also kind of like, oh, someday I would love to be there, and I guess that's part of me right now of my ways to connect with people other than social media or email is through postcards.
Well, I didn't get postcard, but I really did get a lot of letters that from email letters from different spaces that you've traveled, and they usually made my day reading them. So I saw myself traveling through your eyes. So it was interesting. We're gonna talk about that in a little bit. So thank you for sharing about your background. Um, how did your background shape your worldview? I mean, you already hinted at that, but is there something really interesting about your mom's place in academia and growing up in rural Mexico that shaped how you think about the world that is still present in you today?
Yeah, I think like that's this dichotomy of like this little space in which I was born and raised in, and the rest of the world was always in there. Always like I was always going through those points. I mean, I was raised with a really specific roots. Like I have really clear where I'm coming from, where my family, where is my culture, and I bet it every day or as much as I can, even though I might be in other side of the world. But my mom always taught me to take care with that with me, take my identity with me, but also be curious, like learn about the world, and that definitely has shaped the things that I've done and I wanted to do. As you know, I traveled the world. I sailed the world in a cruise ship for 4 months and then spent 1 month traveling by myself. So I mean, even the fact that I went to international high school came from that, of that opportunity was brought on by my curiosity of traveling, of learning, and exploring. But yeah, and today I guess I try to bring a little gift of my town, and share a little bit of what I'm coming from, of myself, but never left it behind. It's always with me. Yeah.
This is great. There's something that is interesting about thinking about placement of people with regards to physical location, physical presence, like your body might be here, but also cultural presence, the embodiment of what expressions and forces that have formed your life, that have made you who you are. And that's kind of the idea of rootedness that you talk about. So you can be dislocated from a place, but still be very much you, right? And at the same time acknowledge different expressions, different food, different languages, but still be authentic to yourself. So for me, I'm always really interested in the authenticity of human beings. because it's sort of like it grounds you and gives you like a true north of where to go. So what do you think will be your true north?
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I consider myself as explorer
You're
by
an
nature.
explorer, yeah.
So, and for me, like traveling and moving around, and I've been living in already 3 countries, doesn't mean that, and living in the sea for a while as well. Uh, it's not that I'm replacing something, what I am with something else. It's adding, it's additive. I might be from Mexico, and that's not gonna change. I have my roots in La Huasteca, but I also kind of feel a little bit. Or I'm familiar with Costa Rica, with this little town that I was living in during high school, and I'm familiar with the culture of my closest friends from Latin America, for example. I feel a little bit like Venezuela, and I feel a little bit Argentinian. So, I mean, I don't say this often, but part of the culture is now embedded into me. Even my language, when I talk to them, that's coming up.
So you're cosmopolitan.
I guess so. It's a way to put it.
Okay. Or a Latin internationalist.
I try to be.
You try to be. Okay, that's great. So, I'm actually interested in something that I've been studying recently, and I'm still a little fuzzy. In conversation with people from Latin America, I get into this conversation about caste. And I remember our conversation with you about the Latin American space being not only a new world, but also new people. So I'm interested in a little bit about the caste system and how it has historically worked in Latin America and how it is still prevalent or maybe absent in consciousness of people.
It's one of those things that is sort of as a something, as a like structural phenomenon, of course, but
Yeah.
has so many repercussions after, in this post-colonial era, even today. I mean, for many philosophers, authors, Latin America, but especially Mexico, or at least Mexico as a first place, was this melting pot, this kind of very intense and intentional space in which many of the indigenous nations, because there was many, ethnicities within there, were blended together within themselves, and also all the European ethnicities that were coming, especially Spanish, and as well as the African people stolen from the lands. So the conversation on racism is still present in Latin America. It's a different kind of racism that we might find in the U.S., for example, that is really divisive. If you're black, you're black. Like, no matter your skin color, no matter how light you might get
In the U.S., yeah.
in the U.S., but in Latin America, it's more like a spectrum. Some people might argue that it's less aggressive. I'll have my issues with that, but it's like, well, you might be this race, this color, but you suppose structurally to pursue to a better life, to a wider life, a modern life.
So wider life become the model, even in this syncretic society that Latin America has kept for itself. But whiteness is still an aspiration for many people.
Yes, it's still this sense of modernization, this sense of the wealthier nations, the wealthier people is they have so many privilege throughout centuries, and they're still carrying out, and that's what people think. Oh, they are doing good because there's something about them, and this is whiteness is what people believe. And of course, I've been called Indian and many things back in Mexico, even me being a privileged person with a educational and cultural background. So it's still very present, especially in.
What do you mean being called Indian? I'm interested in what does that
Right.
what does that mean? What's the cultural significance of that in Mexican spaces? Being called Indian.
Well, I mean, you're already probably familiar with where the term comes from, as Columbus thinking that he was arriving to India, and he ended up arriving somewhere else, certainly. But I mean, it comes with a very despective tone most of the time. These Indian as like these people don't know what they're doing.
Oh, so Indian as in savage.
Yeah, savage, or as the people from that land probably, but they don't know what they're doing. They're not they don't embrace our way of life. So
They are other.
The other.
Okay. If you're talking in Africa, you'd say you're a kafir, or in Swahili it'll be kafiri, which means you are a pagan.
Right.
You are neither Muslim nor Christian, and you are existing in a state of an animalistic situations. So that's what the Boers called the blacks, and suddenly the British also did. So we have similar inferences on how people are othered, and it kind of sticks around in our societies, then formed over time, and the rejections of authentic identities over time as well, because nobody wants to be like kafir or Indian in this case. Yeah,
and even like the Mexican structure, like the Mexican state, it's a post-colonial state and inherit many of the dynamics from the colonial era, and its role and its goal has been to de-indigenize, like make less indigenous the population. Even with there was a movement, kind of like a government driven in the 40s, I believe, Indigenism. And it doesn't sound, it sounds pretty cool, indigenous people, right? But it was not about embracing indigenous culture, but it was about like changing indigenous culture into something modern, something again more like city-like, more that like people with better lifestyles will have. That's a really interesting period of
the pursuit of modernity within indigenous spaces. I've seen this also in African spaces with regard to the Africa you don't see on TV. Like there's a big culture around that about conforming to what is expected to be the standard, and I have problems with that. But anyway, that's really interesting. Let's get on track here. So you majored in international political economy as well as fine arts, right?
Theater, yes.
Theater, and how did this combination influence your intellectual journey, or rather, how did you get into combining these two disparate disciplines and making sense out of it?
I think like both things were very present in my life since I was a child, and as I told you, as my mom was trying to bring me the world to me, there was always, some artistic and some political part of it. Political economy part of it, I should say. So I guess more into the academic formation, political economy has shown me a little bit more like more abstract things, more up there ideas, and also case studies as well that I can relate to. Well, art, theater has brought me this sensibility for many things, and combining them, it's not a one pole or the other, I guess art on one hand can be, an escape from reality, but also can be a very focused and narrow vision of a certain reality. Well, political economy might be studying very grounded and tangible things, but at the end, I also believe that academia overall can be really apart from reality, if that makes sense.
Apart from reality. Wow, that's interesting. Tell me a little bit more about that.
I don't know. I feel that as I was traveling the world and I've been getting to know about so many cultures, I learned many things about them and about many problems of the world being in those situations. For example, racism. Back in Mexico, of course, I experienced some racism, but I could handle myself. It's something that I'm used to it. I'm more familiar with. But especially when I was abroad and I was almost arrested multiple times because of my color skin, because of my nationality, because of my passport. I realized how messed up and how real these phenomena are. And we read about it, we study about it, we think about it, we discuss about it, but we are in a bubble, and there is something really refreshing about living them, even if it's a kind of like a somehow violent thing that happened to me. Nothing really bad happened afterwards, but it was definitely not a pleasure experience.
Yeah, let's tell me a little bit about that, especially traveling in in Kenya. There is a Kenyan incident that happened there which is kind of racialized, but also kind of like othered because of with the passport. So what would be called passport privilege. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, there was many issues that happened in Kenya race-wise with my friends,
Mm,
but the one that I always talk about is when we were trying to take the train to go from Mombasa, the point we were docking,
mm,
to Nairobi. In that occasion, I went with my friends. Most of them were, white skin, international. One were British, one was Serbian. My friend was Peruvian, but she was lighter skinned than me. And at some point, I got trapped by the police of the train station because they knew I was Mexican and they were asking me for my visa, which I left it
at the hotel.
in the sorry no in the ship.
Yeah.
And none of my friends were asked for the visa. I was the only one, and they keep bothering me. Hey, I have it in there. Like, this is my stamp. Like, I came here, legally, and they make this really crazy story about me being a Filipino crew member with a fake Mexican passport trying to sneak into the country. Something really bizarre that I don't know how I ended up with. And that was my first time dealing with this. So that was definitely not pleasant, and I was getting really nervous. And I don't know, I fought with them. I discussed with them for 45 minutes, and until my friend, who is, she's amazing. She's really lovely. This 180 centimeters Slavic woman with a leather jacket, really pale white, came to us, and she said, "Hey, by the way, he's my friend. He's coming with us. Like, he's part of a group." And they said, "Oh, he's your friend? Okay, you can go then." It was the white privilege of someone else that saved me in that occasion. So,
Man, that sucks, man. It's one thing for me to experience it because I'm familiar with it. I know post-colonial societies are structured around white supremacy, but for somebody who's totally alien to experience that, yeah, it's definitely really shocking. Oh wow, what other incident happened there?
in Kenya, just silly little things that happened. I ended up in Kenya's national TV, by the way.
Yeah.
That was funny. But and I think the other crazier thing was in Croatia when we docked in Dubrovnik, but with my friends we took a trip to Bosnia and Herzegovina, to Mostar, and then to Montenegro, and we were going back, and in the bus that we were like traveling, there was full of internationals, like Japanese people, Russian people, Spanish. My friends were, like British, Serbian, and a Mexican, me, right? Well, when we were like going through passport control, my friend was explaining, "Hey, by the way, she speaks the language. My friends are coming here. We're international students. We are just traveling, and she's from the UK, and he is Mexican." And the police guard was like, "Oh, he's Mexican. So, do you have drugs?" Like, the straight out, like, no questions before that. Like, you have to just like, "No, like, are you sure that he doesn't have drugs? Are you responsible for him?" And she was like, "No, of course not." So my friends didn't have any issue. They went through, and when they saw my passport, when I was talking with them, they took it away, and they were like, "Do you have drugs?" And I was like, "No, I don't have drugs. Are you sure?" And they asked me like 10 times, like, "No, I don't have drugs. If we find drugs on your back or on yourself, you will get in trouble. So you better like cooperate right now, like to help us." And I said, I didn't have drugs. So they took away my passport. They took me to this little room in the dark side of the building, and put me in this gigantic metallic table to put all my stuff, my underwear, my clothes out, and almost brought the dogs. They threatened me to bring the drug test. Like, I don't have anything. So after an hour, they couldn't find anything, so they let me go.
This is Croatia.
This is Croatia. They recently joined the
EU.
European Union and Schengen area. So yeah, that was the most racist space I was in.
Oh my God, that's awful. Also, you had a story from Lebanon. So how did was it Lebanon?
No, it was Jordan.
Jordan, yes, you're Jordan, yeah. What happened in Jordan? That's interesting.
Something really similar happened in Jordan and Morocco.
Yeah.
I mean, even in India,
Yeah.
people thought I was from that place. Like
Yes.
people in India thought I was from India,
Yeah.
and they were like, "No, I'm not from." They spoke me in Hindi, and I like in Mumbai, and I'm like, I sorry, I don't speak your language." And they said, "Oh, what part of India are you from?" And I'm not from India at all. That happened to me like at least 3 times, and one of them was with people of my age. And like, "Are you sure? Where are you from?" "I'm from Mexico." Like. I study theater and political economy, and they said, "Oh, you theater? Oh, you look like a Bollywood actor, like 100%." And I thought that was really funny. But in Jordan specifically, what happened was that I was traveling with my friends, and of course, I bought a kufiya, but actually multiple because I love them, and people from the city of Aqaba thought that I was a tour guide of my friends, so they will like come to me, approach me to I don't
So
know.
you are an
make
Arab.
a deal. Yeah, they thought I was Arab totally. Even in Kenya, they thought I was from Yemen, from Palestine, from Kenya itself because of all the Arab population.
Yeah.
In Kenya, that was bizarre. That was totally new to me. Like the amount of times I was spoken in Arab, in French in Morocco, and Amazigh. That was pretty insane.
Oh wow, this is wild. So that's why you say that international political economy sometimes may be abstract, and it manifests when you travel around the world, and some of the things we talk about become realities.
Yeah, certainly, and I mean, so many things that are hidden, beyond that rhetoric of the issues. For example, in the Middle East, what we hear about the Middle East is always, war, crime, and many radicalism groups. And certainly it's part of a big issue like of the area. I'm not gonna lie, but at the same time, I don't know. I was so preconceived to see this space as such a violent space for everyone that when I got there into Jordan, I don't know. There was something about the culture that I was totally forgetting. And hospitality. People be like the food. I was amazing. The landscapes were gorgeous, and so things that are everywhere. Just like I was so blind of all the things that I read in the books and I read in the news.
Wow. Yeah, they say Arabs make the best friends.
Right. Yes. Yeah. They are so friendly, and I don't know.
Oh, cool. So, wow. Well, let's go back to theater a little bit, okay? And let's talk about some of the plays that you've been involved in and some of the characters that you played.
Well, I mean, I guess I should be coming back a little bit into my beginning of my theater career. Let's say.
Yeah.
When I went to high school and UWC in Costa Rica, I thought I would be a doctor. I thought that was my pathway. I guess I was told to do that way, as in many global south spaces.
Your parents say you gotta be a doctor or a lawyer.
Yeah.
Or an engineer.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And I was taking all my bio classes and chemistry classes, which I was not doing bad in them, but I don't know, I was so frustrated, and so I kind of dropped them and tried something else for fun. I was theater, and I was doing silly things. I was writing my own monologues or sketches, and at the end I didn't know what to do with my life, so I decided, okay, I like theater. That's the only thing I know right now about myself in terms of career. So I ended up majoring in theater, and I came here during COVID, as you know. So there was this lack of participation on any. There was a lack of any theater on college and pretty much everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
But when I got into here, I was part of one ensemble group, the theater music production. The play was called Too Much Light Makes the Baby Go Blind. I don't know if you ever watched that play. It's a very classic kind of Chicago-style comedy play. Very nice. And we don't have specific characters. We just kind of play whatever suits us. And I mean, I realized that, it's something that I really am passionate about. I have too much work to do, but people enjoy it. So, there is a lot of recognition, and I'm like, well, maybe this is my thing, and so something to do. I'm gonna involve in not only acting but producing, box office, a makeup artist, like build the set or help to design the costumes or so many things. I got really embedded, and all the shows that I've done after that was Twelfth Night from Shakespeare. I was this silly character crazy, and I loved it. It was my first character with a name, so I'm very proud of it. Sir Andrew Aguechick. I think you watched.
I watched that one.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yes. So that was my first time like being a specific character, and I had so many difficulties because of my English skills were not as good because of Shakespeare is 400 years old and has 400 years old words and expressions, but I really enjoyed it. After that, I had a really small role in Bike America. I don't know if you watched that.
No, I did not watch that one.
Yes. Yeah, it was an okay play. Nice production, okay play. Then I was abroad, and when I came back, I finally got my leading roles in the department production. In this play called On Timing, which is divided in sections, and each section is completely unrelated to each other. And I guess the leading role usually of all productions is Leon Trotsky.
Yeah, I remember you playing Trotsky, and I really loved that because you're really a communist in it.
Somehow, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was a very interesting character, as because of all the political background that of course, my political economy major helped me on understanding with where this character is coming from, what does he represent. But also, he was living in Mexico. I understand the context of he was living as a foreigner, as a
as an exilee.
Exilee, exactly.
Yeah.
So that was very funny and very insightful. It was, even though it was made silly by my director, I think he was a very serious character in many ways, at least in the topics that he was talking about life, about redemption, about existence or legacy. So I'm very proud of that, and that's one of my goals, to keep exploring more serious characters as always being playing funny characters. I also did a monkey, as you know.
Oh yeah, I did the monkey play was an interesting one. I think it was a critique of work society, or wasn't it?
I guess it's one of those plays that has so many ways to go, like so many interpretations. It was definitely a critique of our society, of how senseless is sometimes just being a desk and work for hours. Like I don't know, there's something about like existentialism also, that like, why are we doing this, what are we doing, what we are told to do, like what is the point? And many other literature, it was very complex, as we quote Shakespeare, Milton, Kafka, and other authors. I don't know, it was my favorite play personally.
Oh, you loved that one, out of the ones you've been engaged in?
Yes.
Oh, you loved. Yeah, it was fun to watch. I enjoyed it. Now let's talk about what are your plans, dreams, and aspirations for the future?
For the far future, or for the near future?
Let's talk about the near future.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, definitely. I mean, in 23 days, graduate. That's gonna be a big thing, for many sides of my life. And after that, I am moving out like a couple of days after. So I hope to see you around after graduation, just to say hi and bye. I'm going back to Mexico, bringing all my things. I am going to spend some time traveling with a friend of mine for probably 3 weeks. Just, decompressing, kind of like a grad trip. And I'm going to be developing this Davis Project for Peace, which is, I got a grant for developing a social-based project that we decided to do it in Mexico with my friends. We're going to be working with midwives, indigenous midwives in Mexico, in my region. So it's a nice way to both kind of like give a little bit more recognition of my culture, somehow give a little bit back to what I got. And I don't know, just do social service and reconnect more specifically and spiritually with that side of my life that has been away from me for 6 years. But yeah, and then I'm planning to move to France, as one of friend of my mom invited me to spend a year with her, just learning French.
Oh, great, man! So what does liberal arts mean for you as we end?
I guess liberal arts really suits my exploration spirit. I don't like to be standing or still in one place. As you know me throughout the years, I like to be doing so many things, and that might not be related. So, for me, liberal arts represents that freedom, freedom that allows you to grow academically, personally, emotionally, and just as a, I don't know, as a basic human being that can think.
What do you say to those who resist the spirit of the liberal arts?
I say that try it out. Like there's nothing that you might lose, and there's more things beyond those books, something beyond those numbers that might be narrow in certain fields, and even in fields like political science or economics. There's something human about academia, something human about many things that we do that are forgotten. So give yourself a chance to reconnect with all those things.
Yeah, I can't. That's the last one. I'm gonna end it here because we can talk all day. But it's really refreshing hearing you and talk, like listening to your growth and many of these experiences, and it's a blast. So please keep on watching and share and subscribe, and hopefully you'll be the next guest at the Uber Cordero Show. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Hopefully.